Welcome back to the ordinary meeting of Council, Wednesday the 16th of December 2020. We've had further technical difficulties. So we've had part 1 and part 2 and we're proceeding to part 3. So we will cross our fingers and hope there are no further difficulties, but there may be. So we'll go back to where we were in the agenda, to Councillor Helen Healy's questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Modica. My first question and the second question are actually in relation to the climate emergency motion that we passed as a council in February last year. And I would like an update on item number 2, which is to obtain current baseline greenhouse gas emission levels on municipal services, operations and infrastructure, and implement and report on a strategy to reduce these emissions, including an analysis of our capacity to reach a target of zero net emissions by 2050.
General Manager.
Off.
So what we're planning to do, and that sort of encompasses a fair few of the questions now, I know what the next question is. There's going to be the development of a climate emergency community reference group, which will have members of the community on the reference group. We're aiming to get that set up early in the new year, and that will help assist and form the plan to address those mitigation strategies from not just what council can do, but what the community can do as well. And as part of that, they'll be using their baseline data that they collect periodically to help inform that plan.
Well, I must say I'm delighted with that answer. Thank you very much. And can I also ask, without going too much into the second part of my question previously, if we can look at rate rebates around covenant properties, that these people are holding this land not just for the future, but for helping us deal with climate change?
Through CEO Philpott.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Certainly we have undertaken to have a look at that matter. We can provide some additional information out of session for you, but we have flagged it also as part of Council's rating review, which is part of the work that you'll be doing in this new term of Council. But we'll certainly continue those investigations.
Thank you very much. My third question leads on from these questions. I'm hoping in this review that is going to be developed that we take into consideration the Victorian Government's budget, which included $543 million to develop 6 renewable energy zones, and it's part of a $1.6 billion clean energy commitment to build solar and wind farms to meet the state's renewable energy targets. I'd like to know how we are going to position ourselves to be a leader and attract investment in renewable energies in our region.
General Manager, Community. Sorry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sure the committee would be looking at all the funding options, and that obviously would be one of them.
Thank you, Manager Community. I'd like to be involved in that committee somehow. My fourth question is, in view of in the latest statistics that came out of Know Your Council, Mildura is considered a hotspot for smoking statistics. And according to the Heart Foundation, 1 in 5 people in our municipality still smoke. And along with that, the associated health issues and our burden on our health system and hospital. Could we show leadership in this space and consider banning smoking in public places in our municipality?
General Manager, Development. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 more. And this is a trite one. The mayoral board down at the riverfront hasn't been updated since 2016. I just wondered when the mayor's names are going to be added to that board. I got asked by a constituent that question.
Thank you. We will take that one on notice. We believe that the board is actually managed by Rotary, and we may have that wrong, but we'll double check that and we'll come back to you and provide you some further information.
Thank you very much. My last question, I was driving in from the South Australia border last week on a very, very hot and windy day, and I noticed a dust storm up ahead, and as I got closer, it was not coming from the Mildura at all. It was actually just the other side of the Merbene mushroom group, and it was looked like a building site or a soil site with trucks and great big piles of dirt, soil, sand. And I wonder, is there any law about watering these sites? I know there is for building sites, but these garden, maybe supply places on windy days, because it was picking up an enormous amount of dust and blowing it into that region of Mildura South.
General Manager.
Through you, Mayor, yes, there are regulations around dust pollution that the EPA can look into that. So we actually have an EPA officer that sits within our council that we can actually get to have a look at that if that's an issue.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you for all the questions, councillors. We now move on to item 12, which is notices of motion, and there are none. We now move on to item 13, petitions, joint letters and deputations. Item 13.1 is a petition from Cabarita Community Inc., a student safety study, and as a recommendation at item 2 that council note the petition and that the matter be considered within management report item 14.1 of the December ordinary meeting of council. Can I have a mover for that motion to accept that petition? Councillor Reynolds, a seconder. Councillor Power. Does anybody want to object to that motion? I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. We now move to item 14, management reports. We move to item 14.1, a response to petition, Cabarita Community Inc. student safety. We have a recommendation at item 2 that council note officers will continue to investigate the matters raised in the petition and prepare a report with recommendations for council's further consideration.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I actually make a change to that recommendation at this point, or is that possible?
Yeah, you can make an amendment, but you have to put it in a motion.
In writing beforehand? Okay. Okay, so I'd like to amend the recommendation just to add to that recommendation the date that's already within this motion, which is that the report be brought back to council in January.
CEO Philpott.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, what is reflected in terms of the time frame is that the report would be concluded around the end of January, which means that it would likely miss the January council meeting cycle because of the nature of the traffic counts and so on. But if you wish to ensure that there's a date, then I would recommend, with your agreement, that it would be February, because that would allow us to prepare the report and then bring the item back to you for February, in line with what's in the report.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy with that recommendation.
Happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so could we amend the motion? I was going to call you Councillor Sexton. I think you've heard that before, haven't you, Mr. Okay, everybody's happy with that. So I've had a mover and a seconder. Did I have a mover and a seconder? Are there any objections? Would anyone like to speak to the motion? I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion has carried. Thank you. Now we move to item 14.2, Community Partnerships Grant Program 2020-2022, with a recommendation. Councillor Arnie, sorry mate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish to notify Council of a general conflict of interest.
Thank you for that. Could you explain your conflict of interest, Councillor Arnie?
I believe my conflict of interest is that one of the groups that will be receiving some of these funds I am associated with on a number of different levels.
Thank you for that, Councillor Arnie. Mr Sexton will get the paperwork for you. I will call you back in once we've gone through the recommendation. Councillor Healy.
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest. I'm on the committee of one of the recipients, Food Next Door, on the Community Water Bank and the Community Demonstration Farm. General.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. Is your hand up, Councillor Milner? Thank you.
That either MASP or SRS may be the recipients of one of these grants, and I'm on both boards.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. The numbers
yeah.
are thinning out fairly quickly at this point in time. We will call you back in with a result, Councillor Milne. Councillor Di Pieri.
I think I just wish to clarify, if I may, through you, that I won't be applying as a business for any of these things.
It's a different item, Councillor Di Pieri.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
That's okay. But I think just to clarify, it would be your decision in the end, Councillor Di Pieri, to sit in or stand out. Okay. Do we need to shut the door, or am I being pedantic? So we move to agenda item 14.2 with a recommendation at item 2 that Council further clarify resolution number 2020/0179 of its 26th of the August 2020 ordinary meeting by now resolving to release agreed funding when the following criteria is met by the applicants: that grant applicants submit a COVID-safe plan for review by Council, an agreement reached that the plan is satisfactory prior to their event or activity proceeding, and the grant applicants demonstrate they can deliver their program activities safely in accordance with the COVID-safe plan, ensuring no risk to the relevant agencies or Mildura Rural City Council, and achieve the agreed upon social outcomes as proposed in the original application. Do I have a mover for that motion? Councillor Eckel. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Reynolds. Does anyone want to object to the motion? Would anyone like to speak to the motion? I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. The motion is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. The motion was carried. So we now move to agenda item 14.3, funding opportunities available under the Department of Sport and Recreation Victoria Community Motorsport Program 2020. We have a recommendation at item 2 that council endorse this. Sorry, Councillor Milne. I was just going to read the recommendations, but sorry, I will read them just because I think it's a really good outcome. Endorse the St Rosia Drag Racing Association project application for Community Motorsport Program 2020 funding. Commit $49,684.04 excluding GST towards the project from 2020 to 2022. Operational budget subject to a successful funding application, and commit to providing in-kind support to assist in project management and deliver the scope of works identified in the funding application. Moved by a mover, Councillor Milne. A seconder, Councillor Wood. Does anyone want to object to the motion? Would anyone like to speak to the motion? Thank you, Councillor Milne.
Oh, briefly, I think it's this is a good outcome with council investing in motorsport, given that we know how much money it brings into the community. And it's a good effort by the Drag Racing Club to put in $50,000. This is about, well, near enough to, and it is about safety. And the thing is that we do own that track, and that'll bring that right up to standard again. So, you know, it's a good win-win all the way around, and you know, wish them all the best with the project.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. The motion is carried. We now move to item 14.4, Library Service Strategy 2020-2025. We have a recommendation at item 2. Could I have a mover for that recommendation? Councillor De Pieri. A seconder? Councillor Healy. Does anybody want to object to that motion?
Clarification, thanks.
Yes, Councillor Eckel.
Yeah, I just want to raise the issue, Mr Mayor, that I raised in council on questions, and whether this particular strategy could look at the issue that was raised, also raised by the issue raised by Councillor Power as well as mine in regards to the those two different strategies that the other councils are embarking on.
Councillor Hall, sorry, General Manager, Community.
I'm just going back to the questions that I asked previously in regards to the library and the different strategies that are being utilised by other libraries, such as the Maintain the Gains and After Hours Library, and also the question that you answered for Councillor Power in regards to stories, whether they can be included in this strategy.
Through you, Mr Mayor, obviously we'll have a look at that. We just need to investigate what the programs consist of, and primarily if there's any budget impact would be something we'd have to consider, but we can take it on notice in the sense that we'll look at the programs.
I'd like it to be taken on notice and a report to councillors in regards to those strategies that I mentioned previously. Yeah. But I'm happy with the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Eckel, and to be taken on notice. Thank you. I will now, Councillor Power, you have a question? Sorry. I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Happy for you to speak to the motion, Councillor Healy.
I'd like to commend the work of the Library Services team, the extent of their workshops that they held with the Mallee District Aboriginal Services, Sunrise Ethnic Community Services, Youth Ambassadors, Christie Centre, and particularly the drop-in sessions they held throughout this broad municipality, and also commend them on their work in the past year of establishing a library service in Murrayville, and the work that's gone into establishing a really fine and well-attended library in Orion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Healy. We now move to item 14.5, a COVID-19 Immediate Community Relief and Assistance Response Package. We have a